Welcome, everyone, to the April 19th meeting of Soquel Creek Water District. We have call to order is now by me, and then roll call, please.
Director Daniels is absent. Vice President Christensen.
Here.
Director Jaffe.
Here.
Director Lather.
Present.
And President LeHue.
I am here. So we will close out now, and we'll go to closed session.
This is weird. My link.
See you back at 6:20 here.
No public comment.
There was no, okay, I should ask for that, but I just read the
We don't
email.
have anybody attending either.
But let's just make sure.
President LeHue, there's nobody in the attendees list right now.
Yeah, okay, great.
And President LeHue, I'd like to make a note. It seems like Teams has done an update. So if you have trouble, please reach out to Emma. If you get
I'm having trouble. Emma, can you send me the link to
All
my?
right, I'll try it.
Okay.
Can you send the link to my personal email? It didn't work, and I did it.
Rochelle, I had to monkey with it, and there was a couple options, and that got me to it earlier. So
Well, there's no monkey here. It doesn't have anything.
does it have any options?
No.
I'll hang with you for a minute till you.
Okay. Well, I forwarded it to myself.
Although I may have issues too. 'Cause
Yeah, because let me see.
Hey, Becca.
Yes.
Okay, will you help Rochelle? I got to make sure I can get into the other session, okay? If she needs
Yeah, I'm
help.
gonna text Emma and have her send the link again
Okay.
to her.
Just send it to my personal email so I can get
Okay.
it on my computer. Otherwise, I have to use my iPad, and it's not as good.
I would send it to you, but I do not have it. I
Okay.
just texted Emma.
Okay.
Okay. Good luck.
I hate missing a party, you know.
Emma said, yes, she'll send it to you.
All right, it is 6:20. Have we got everybody back?
I see Director Lather's name, but not her face.
Oh, she's on mute
I see
and her,
Carla and Bruce, and let's just see. And we have one attendee. Okay. And then
that is,
it says Rochelle's there. Okay. There she is. Okay. All righty. And did Ron make it back? Yeah, looks like. Great. All right. Well, welcome back, everyone. Just had updates at the closed session and there was no reportable action. There is no public hearing today. Is there any, well, I'll rotate through, but next, this item is just to see if anybody has anything they'd like to remove from consent. Let's see, maybe I'll start with Rochelle today.
Picking on me. Yeah, no, I don't have anything to remove.
Okay, and Bruce? Nothing to remove?
Nothing to remove.
Okay, and Carla?
I don't either.
Okay,
Any-
I don't either, so we could entertain a motion.
Okay, I'll move to approve.
Is there a public comment on this
Oh,
item?
sorry.
You're right. Any public comment? I saw one attendee, so anybody with a raised hand? No raised hand?
I do not see any raised hands.
There we go. All right. All right, so Carla made the motion and I think we stopped. Anybody second it?
You second it, Tom.
Okay, Rochelle, are you trying to say something?
I'm seconding.
Oh, okay. Okay, got it. All right. All right, roll call, please.
Director Daniels is absent. Vice President Christensen,
Yes.
Director Jaffe,
Yes.
Director Lather,
Yes.
and President Lehue.
Yes. There might have just as a note, sorry, I didn't pull it up, but just double check the letter on the dates. There might be a mistake in the last line. Okay, might have said, so just trying to find that. I don't have my usual.
Is this the letter to LAFCO or another letter or?
One of the letters, I'm trying to think.
Okay, we'll check them.
Just check the date because it might have not said 20. Yeah, just double check the date at the end of the letter. I can't find my annotations because I don't have my usual program that I used. So, okay, so we will move on and then oral and written communications. So are there any public members that have anything they would like to address the board on an item not on tonight's agenda? Looking for hands up. Don't see any. Anybody else see any? Are we good?
I do not see any.
All right. Any board members have anything they'd like to add? I can go through again in order. Rochelle, do you have anything?
This is oral and written, right?
Yep.
Okay, so I wanted to tell everybody how lucky I was to be going to the CWEA conference last week in Sacramento. And I got to see our lovely engineers' presentation on the Pure Water Project. And they did a great job, her and Jan. I had been a little nodding off in the first one that came up, and they woke me up and they did a great job, and it was really informative. I was very proud.
Great. Thanks for sharing that. Bruce Jaffe, you have anything?
Nothing.
And Carla?
No, I'm tempted, but I think I'll pass on.
Okay. Well, I mean, I just got back from Washington where they've had plenty of rain and they have plenty of snow. And I was thankful while I was there to hear we got some more here. So, so that's my happy place. You know? Okay, so then next would be reports. We have an oral report, District Council.
Thanks, President Hugh. Just one thing I wanted to, or actually two things I wanted to update, just related to COVID-19. The first, I'm sure everyone saw that the federal travel-related mask mandate had been overturned by a judge in Florida. That does not affect AB 361 or our ability to meet remotely or the statewide California declaration of emergency. So there are no real direct impacts on the district, but something we'll of course continue to monitor as that continues to change if it does. The second, and somewhat related, we had talked about a month ago now about some of the bills that are pending in the legislature, which may make permanent changes to the Brown Act to provide more flexibility for directors to attend meetings remotely, like we have under AB 361. You'll remember the default Brown Act rules require that every location where a director calls in or attends by video conference at a meeting must be posted on the agenda, as well as have the agenda posted at that location in advance of the meeting, which creates some practical limitations on remote attendance. AB 1944, which is one of the bills that has been proposed to provide some additional flexibility, was actually just amended recently to provide better clarity on how directors would do so. And essentially what it would do would allow directors to attend meetings from non-public places without identifying those locations on the agenda, as long as the board itself made certain findings at least once permitting directors to do so. This bill still remains in the Assembly Local Government Committee, but it's one we'll be watching very closely. It looks like it may have some traction, and if it starts to move, we'll make sure the board's aware. As a reminder, the bill still is not an urgency measure, which means that even if it does make it through the legislative process and is signed by the governor, it won't take effect until January 1st. I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Any questions? I'm looking for hands.
A question on, so if this takes effect on January 1st, what's active until then?
AB 361 will still remain in effect, which allows us to meet remotely as long as social distancing is recommended or the statewide declaration of emergency remains in effect. The governor's indicated, at least in his February move to the smarter plan, that the declaration would remain in effect given the flexibility it provides the state, but it's something we'll have to keep watching. If for some reason that were to go away, our ability to do remote meetings like this would lapse and we'd have to go to in-person or the traditional teleconference rules.
Okay, any other questions? Okay. All right, seeing none, then we'll move on. So next we'll go on to administrative business, which we have no conditional will serves, but we have an update, as we worked on our strategic plan. So some good work looks like it was done in the interim. So Ron, are you presenting this?
Yes, I'll take this one, President LaHue. Thank you. I do have Emma and of course Tracy here, which are, we form a little triad on this, trying to lead the entire organization and outside partners too. Big effort, started back in January. Board gave us the green light. We've done a lot of outreach and information receiving from over the whole alphabet now, more than 26 interested parties. And then of course, interior through the staff, through different ways, surveys and appreciative inquiry workshops. And of course, we had the meeting on April 2nd, which we brought to you kind of the essence of what we were hearing from internally and externally, and presented that to you. And I think go to the whiteboard there, please, if you would, Emma. And so that what was captured out of that was kind of the emerging theme of on the left, I believe, is from the external folks and staff, and then on the right from what the board considered kind of main themes. And what we saw out of that was, there's definitely some common emerging themes, such as, water quality was almost like not even had to be stated, I think was one of the statements, because it is our kind of leading thing. And, good water quality, nothing we do shortchanges that, right? But other things started to emerge as the interior and feedback that we've gotten, and the environmental scan that I presented, put some boundaries or some opportunities in exterior forces, kind of shapes, I think, people's thinking a little bit. So out of that, pursuing funding opportunities with this once in a lifetime situation we have was kind of a theme, definitely from the board and some of our other partners and staff. Encouraging workforce development. Those are the three shown by that, the pink lines there, if you will. And then other common themes that we just didn't track with the lines, but increasing sustainability, looking at it more holistically. We heard a lot about we're doing great outreach, but continue to even do more. And another theme I think is just going to take a big place is kind of this regional collaboration, right? As many agencies struggle to reach some kind of sustainability. So with all that in mind, we had received a lot of feedback, and going down to figure 2, I guess, please. Becca, I think, is running this. And what we did is we took that information that was fed back to us at the board meeting, and based on all the information I just talked about, and tried to show you in track changes right here what that meant in terms of our values, right? So there was discussion around fairness, honesty, and ethics, whether those were the right values in that category, if you will. And what we thought we heard was some discussion around fairness. We left that word, but tried to capture maybe some of what that word doesn't maybe encapsulate with some of the other words that you see there, and that sort of thing. And then on down, we tried to put a qualifier in front of customer service to know that it's quality customer service, right? Holistic environmental stewardship, because what we heard was it's not just about groundwater. The streams are important, the climate, that we might have a strategy behind that one that talks about climate or neutrality or something, just to give you a sense. And then sustainability, you can see them all laid out there, and community relations and collaboration, that kind of goes with that theme that I was just mentioning, but it's also a value that bleeds into the theme. So we have that, and then on the next page, the values and these primary organizational goals constitute really the heart of our strategic plan, right? And we took a shot at updating those primary organizational goals based on what we heard, through all this information, trying to synthesize it, bringing it down, and from the board on April 2nd. And so, again, I'll run through them briefly, but that water sustainability, that number 1, again, including more of a regional eye toward our local potential partners, and the holistic view. Resiliency was a thing that was brought out about the infrastructure. Community engagement, build upon it. It's not, at the beginning, it was establish that, right? When we did this 7 years ago. So that was really an astute comment. We don't need to establish it. We got that. We just need to continue to take it to the next level. And and on down, to finance, to try to capture the customer service one. That always seemed a little short, but I really like what we have there: respectful, responsive, and empowering, as adjectives in there. And then ending up with workforce and organizational excellence. That one always seemed a little short in some of our minds. So what we heard was maximize appropriate training and growth opportunities. And then we had the little part about board governance there. We thought that was important. So that comprises the attachment. There's a couple attachments here, but if you were to look at attachment 2, it would have all those in strikeout change. Attachment 3, you don't have to go to those. Well, attachment 3 incorporates all those without the strikeouts. And that's really what we're asking the board to, by motion, to approve tonight. Attachments 2 and 3, because 2 shows the strikeouts, 3 does not. Or give us some modifications if we didn't quite capture what you think is appropriate. And then the second part of tonight's meeting is there's a second part to the strategic plan. It's more of a staff kind of thing, and I think that's shown in attachment 4. And those are our primary goals, right? Our strategies to meet our primary goals. And what we're asking, we're going to go back and update those once we feel good about the first page of this. And we'll bring it back at some future meeting just for the board to review, if that sounds like the appropriate way to go. This is kind of getting down into a staff level effort here, but we always like to run it by the board, because behind this then unfolds a whole work plan, right? After these 2 pages of a lot more tactics in order to accomplish these strategies that are designed to meet our primary goals. So with that, I'll stop it.
Just to clarify, just so if we come to conclusion on the values and organizational goals, then you and staff will work on these next pieces of the actual strategies and then come back with those using whatever the modifications were as guides.
Right. And exactly, that's it.
Okay. Well, do we have any public comment on this item? Any hands up?
I'm not seeing any raised hands.
Okay, great. Thank you. So then why don't I go through that, see what board members think or what they want to change or what they like. So Rochelle?
I'm fine with it. It sounds like what we discussed.
Great. Yeah, it's a good job.
Yeah.
Bruce?
Did we lose him?
He's just muted. There we go.
Just a question about the use of holistic. What's the intention there?
Yeah, the intention, and others can chime in, but the way I remember it was we wanted to accent that it's not just groundwater, that when we think about environmental stewardship, just to make sure that it's broader than that, right? It could have to do with the surface water bodies, climate change, biota. It's a little broader than that we wouldn't just obtain groundwater sustainability at the expense of something else. We try to think in a broader mindset. And maybe somebody else wants to chime in, a board member, because Carl, I believe that, or Director Christensen, I believe that was kind of one of your ideas, that we capture that.
Yeah, I probably didn't use holistically because I don't understand that term very well.
Okay.
But I think that's an important consideration for a water district to be considering the impacts of the process of providing water to the public, to our customers, is to consider the environment. And I feel like we are and have been, at least in recent times, very, very, very aware and in considering that in all of our decisions. But I think it's always good to put that front and center so that we have a way of acting in the future, being consistent. There was one thing, is it my turn? Was I actually talking?
Yeah.
Did I
we're
call
here.
on? Oh,
Okay.
no, am I called on or something? Oh,
Well, yeah,
wondering about, I know Director Daniels isn't here right now, but one of the things he mentioned was, this is an example of, sometimes I think it's too general for me to understand how we would implement some of these important things. And another important things, in addition to what is necessarily kind of general in the environmental statement, is something like becoming greener, a green business, becoming a green business, energy wise and everything. And I was just wondering how that fits into how we implement these core values. And that's just an example of, it's something I'm still not clear on. And maybe that relates to the term holistic also.
I looked it up.
Oh, thank you.
There's a definition. It says the philosophy is in a way that is characterized by comprehension of the parts of something as intimately interconnected and explicable only by reference to the whole. Does that make any sense?
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
I think it makes sense.
Yeah, I think we could leave it in there, but I still would like, I don't know, that's the only problem I have with those values, is how to make sure that we're acting on those. We have these values, and I think the district as a whole has really great values already too. And just drilling down on what we already have is a really good idea. But some of these other things that we haven't necessarily achieved, how do we make sure that we make progress in that direction? For
Right.
example, the example that Dr. Daniels said was, I saw a water district down south, they had made a commitment to go complete green energy by a certain date. And I didn't know how they would ever implement that, but I was wondering if that would be a suitable way of implementing part of that environmental stewardship kind of thing.
Right. And I know Melanie had her hand up, but I'll say the way I see this type of thing. So let's say holistic environmental stewardship. And yet we also later we have a thing about financial, right? Stewardship also. And that's where it gets intriguing, is when you got to balance those two. So we could, it probably would cost X amount of dollars to be totally carbon neutral, right? We could go out to C3 and do that. And the board, and I assume we're going to present this to you at some point and say, okay, it's going to cost this much. Is that, you got two values here. Which one, how does that play out? And maybe you split it, so, but on the right side, they're the core value questions also. And they're, I think they're helpful. So when you say, what does holistic environmental stewardship mean? And then does the decision consider the impact to holistically to X, Y, and Z there? So, but I hope that answers your question as to how we will get to these or employ our values. So anyway, I think Melanie, were you raising your hand there? Should I?
yeah. Where is she?
Yeah, just from the term holistic, we've noticed with outreach, we do use it to mean like the whole, like before, like holistic medicine. But it does have sometimes a different connotation, like more philosophical and not a true type of thing. So, I think in medicine, they're switching it to more like integrative medicine versus holistic medicine. So, that's just kind of that, not using the word stakeholder anymore. But I know from an outreach standpoint, we still sometimes use holistic as a comprehensive or the whole, not just certain parts of environmental stewardship, but the integrated.
I mean,
Yeah.
one idea.
Well, we could substitute that and you know what, it would mean the same thing, but holistic also is less technical. Maybe that's good.
I want to make sure Bruce has a chance to finish if he had something else, because we went off on that one thing. So Bruce, did you have other comments on it?
But that's why I asked whether I was supposed to be talking.
Yeah, I know. I just want to make sure I go
I
back.
think it's a fascinating discussion.
Mhm.
And I don't have a strong feeling about including or excluding holistic. I see that the definition or the core value question really does clarify how we're using holistic.
Mhm.
So I'm okay with it. Since values is still up here, under the community relationships and collaboration, community, relationships and collaboration. Just, I don't know what a community entity is.
It, are you, should I respond?
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
Please.
Yeah, I mean, I think it could be a nonprofit, an NGO, right? And Tracy, if you, anybody or Emma want to hop in, it could be
Another water district?
well, it could be another water district for sure, but I'm trying to think broader.
What pops into my head too is like schools and like Twin Lakes Church as an example, perhaps.
That's what I understood at our workshop, is that's what I understood it to be. Or the Live Oak neighborhood.
So what's and others then? At the end of that.
Well, that might be the question then.
well, I mean, yeah, I mean, I guess we could leave that. I mean, I was going to expand it to to me, it's comprehensive. We try to be comprehensive, and maybe we left something out with the word entities. But even to the extent of, we know we've fostered good relationships with some of the a chamber or two that's been very supportive and grant funding and that sort of thing. So I did want to make sure I mentioned that, but I think and others.
Can I propose something there? Just to and it might not catch everything you meant for it, but it could be just a decision, promote collaboration and enhance relationships with our community. And that leaves out entities. But
okay.
Well, you could say, once you say promote collaboration with others, that others is pretty broad.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
that
So
I think part of it was that we recognize that we are developing relationships beyond our traditional borders of influence. You know, we're building a plant that's actually outside of our district boundary. And so I think that was what we had discussed in putting some terminology in there, that it really kind of created that broader sense.
Yeah, no, I agree. That was a theme that was emerging from the workshop. Maybe the wordsmithing is, does the decision action promote collaboration and enhance relationships with others?
okay. Yeah. I think that, you know, is inclusive, right? Which is a value up top. You know.
Mhm.
for anything else,
Please.
Bruce?
Yeah, I get, so as I understand it, attachments for, I'm clicking on the screen.
They're going to work on that later after we establish these.
I just input on the water resources management and sustainability, the first goal.
Mhm.
I'd like to see the regional
Okay.
aspect to that when it comes back. I think that's how we're thinking anyways.
Okay, thank you.
Doing it regionally. That's all I had though.
Okay, Carla, do you have some other things?
I think actually I had a lot of input in that in the first place. So other than that one, the phrasing of the community, I think look at that again about the community and others, because I think I see others in two places in that
Right.
area. And I was happy to see the high quality customer service service, because I felt like that should be the minimum standard, I guess. And I think that we really strive to achieve that. So I thought that was unnecessary. And so I really do agree. This is a very interesting process, I guess, say, and it was good to clarify the language, because the words are, an individual word has a great impact. So,
Great.
yeah,
I'll-
waiting to, yeah, go on.
No, I was gonna add my 2 cents on a couple of things.
Yeah.
So, of course, I loved the fact that you included long-term thinking about sustainability, and that whole idea I think is really important. And when you transfer that to the organizational goals, it kind of got only placed under fiscal responsibility. It's the only place long-term came in. And so I'm not sure where else. You got to,
Well, I think I'm gonna see
whether
if-
that would be long-term, looking way ahead under water resource management or infrastructure. I don't know, but I just wanted to make sure it just didn't get lost as it goes to the next level in your organizational scheme, that it's not just long-term fiscal responsibility.
Right, and I wrestled with that a little bit, but I think the thinking that we had was, in number one, you have sustainable and holistic, which kind of gets to that thought. And then in number two, we added the word resilient, which to me, that's long-term, right? It has a characteristic long-term.
Resiliency is, but like in that number one,
Mhm.
I would probably use the words long-term instead of holistic, because
Yeah.
sustainable solutions with regional
Okay.
partners to meet the long-term water quality needs. So, I mean, 'cause to me, holistic there doesn't make
All
sense.
right. Well, I'm going to jot down that change if that sounds like a good modification.
That's a good, yeah, I didn't consider the implications of that.
And I can summarize these when you go to do a motion if you like.
Yeah. But otherwise, I think, you've done a good job of including a lot of the things we all talked about, and I'm sure from staff as well. So I didn't know whether, other question I had was, I wanted to make sure I was clear of what empowering customer service means.
That's a good question.
I like
think
this.
on that-
Sounds
I like
good.
I think on that, President LaHue, one of the things that we talked about, and it really came through, I think, was the things that we've done to provide information to our customers so that they're empowered with the knowledge to make their own decisions about their water use. And we felt that that was a really important kind of theme that came through in all of the information that we were gathering, was giving our customers data and knowledge to make good decisions.
Could it be informative customer service? I don't know. But maybe you like empowering. I just wasn't sure I understood, and whether anyone else would understand what it
What
meant.
is it?
Oh, hands up, Bruce.
Oh, yeah, I put my hand up. I'll put it down now.
No,
No, I did have something.
yeah.
Just under the community engagement and trust, and this is getting down to kind of nitpicky stuff, but it used to be establish excellent relationships, and now it's continued to build upon our excellent relationships. they're not all excellent. So
That's true.
I
So
think
you
we just
should have say
build-
establish and build upon.
Well, no, just continue to build upon our
Okay.
relationships,
Okay.
and then
Got it. And let me go back to the customer service one. And I really want to capture that idea that Tracy was mentioning. I'm not sure the way I worded it does it, but maybe we need provide respectful, responsive, and customer service and empowering customers. Would that capture it better? I mean, because I think that idea of like with AMI and kind of helping people manage their own, that's a powerful tool, you know, and we're trying to do that.
How about and empower, or something with empowering customers to. Well, I thought of something and I forgot, sorry.
I think it's actually worded okay, as long as I understand what
Okay.
it
All right,
meant,
fair enough.
you know? I
Okay.
just want, and it makes sense now, if you're empowering them with knowledge, like not only of what we're doing, but also, like you said, AMI is a great example. I mean, you're
Okay.
putting more control in their hands, so that is empowering them.
Okay. We'll leave it. Thank you.
Okay, so everybody's had a chance. Any other thoughts? So we've made a few little modifications. Ron, do you want to kind of,
Yeah, I'll take a shot.
mean-
So I'll get okay, under values, we're going to reword that question with community relationships and collaboration to say something to the effect of, does the decision or action promote collaboration and enhance relationship with others?
yeah,
Okay.
I think that was good.
Yeah, and I caught the double other thing. And then number one, under primary organizational goals, we'll replace holistic with long-term. I think that's a great change. And then, yeah, number three, we'll take out the word excellent. And I really like that because we do have some excellent relationships, but those are not the only ones we wanted to continue to build upon, right? We're gonna work on the other one, actually, so.
maybe we do only want to continue. No.
No, we got lots of other ones, I think, in my opinion. But these are great suggestions. Again, kudos to the strategic champions, the board, Tracy, Emma, all the staff. I mean, it's a lot of work to even, you know, it seems simple, but it's not, the process is not simple to get there, right?
So we could entertain a motion with the changes he mentioned.
I'll make that motion.
Dave?
Second. Oh, she beat me.
Wait,
Nope, I didn't.
Oh.
I decided not to say anything.
Oh,
Yeah,
I second.
okay. Moved by Bruce Jaffe, seconded by Rochelle. And so roll call, please.
Director Daniels is absent. Vice President Christensen,
Yes.
Director Jaffe,
Yes.
Director Lather,
Yes.
and President Lahue.
Yes. All right, so we will move on. This is our presentation. I think, Ron, I forget who's starting this one off. This is item 7.3, but kind of relating both the report of our water year in with decisions about our water shortage stage declaration. So who is starting this one off?
I am. Thank you, President Lahue.
Thanks, Alyssa.
Yeah, we have, as you said, brought item 7.3 to you tonight to just do a real brief overview of our rainfall totals in our service area and of current groundwater conditions to inform the declaration of a water shortage stage and our curtailment target for the coming year. And so I'll just give a brief overview of the process for declaring a water shortage stage and of rainfall. And then Cameron Tana from Montgomery and Associates will present an overview of the Santa Cruz Mid-County Basin Water Year 2021 annual report to discuss groundwater conditions. And as you'll see, this information supports the staff recommendation to remain in a stage 3 water shortage emergency for the rest of 2022 and early 2023 with a recommended curtailment target of 25%. So each year in the springtime, we are required to assess our water supply according to the criteria outlined in our most recent water shortage contingency plan. And our last plan was approved last year as part of our 2020 urban water management plan. And this gives a roadmap for how to respond to water shortages. It prescribes an appropriate curtailment target, customer demand reduction actions, and district measures to meet that target. And so we can declare a stage 1 with a 5% curtailment all the way up to a stage 6 with a greater than 50% curtailment, as is shown in table 1. And as written in this plan, the severity of our water shortage is determined by 3 trigger conditions, one being rainfall and recharge for the past 5 years, the next being groundwater conditions and production capacity. And because we don't currently have any significant production related shortages, the shortage stage declaration this year really comes down to rainfall and to a greater extent to groundwater conditions. And so just briefly going to go over rainfall. We all know that it's been dry this year, and we estimate that we received approximately 21 inches of rainfall between October 1st and March 31st. And a disproportionate of that amount of that did come early in the season. We had a historically dry January, February. And this is below, 21 inches is below our average for that same period of time, which is about 26 inches. And we have received below average rainfall for 4 of the past 5 years. The rainfall totals over this time period do indicate a stage 3 water shortage due to decreased recharge for multiple years. That's based on 3-year total rainfall and 5-year. But as we know, rainfall is not the biggest indicator of the condition of our water supply, and it's not a one-to-one relationship between rainfall and supply. And our current water shortage stage 3 declaration is based on groundwater elevations and chloride concentrations at representative monitoring points in the Mid-County groundwater basin. And these triggers give us a better idea of the overall state of the basin and the risk of seawater intrusion. So now I will turn it over to Cameron for his presentation.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Alyssa, and thank you, board. What I'm about to present is mostly the same as the presentation that my colleague Georgina King gave to the Santa Cruz Mid-County Groundwater Agency last month in presenting the annual report that was due to California Department of Water Resources on April 1st. But it also has a couple of additional slides that highlight supporting information for what Alyssa was just presenting, and that is the information on groundwater conditions that is used to evaluate the district's water shortage stage declaration. So next slide, please. And so the annual report, and as noted on the title slide, this is the 3rd annual report, covers the previous water year and meets statutory requirements under the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, or SGMA. So it's due April 1st every year and has specific requirements, but is really meant to demonstrate to DWR that progress is being made towards achieving groundwater sustainability. Next slide, please. And so there's a number of components to the annual report that are required by Sigma and the GSP regulations, and the report, which is linked in the agenda packet, has all the content that is required. Some highlights of that content include the hydrographs, groundwater levels over time. You can see an example of that in the top left. And I think if you look at that, it is interesting that over a number of recent years, the basin has shown a recovery of groundwater levels in correlation to historically low groundwater pumping. But in the last couple of years, those groundwater levels have dropped, especially in the last year. We think that is mostly due to an uptick in groundwater pumping and less so directly to the lower rainfall and recharge. But it is kind of a step back in the progress the basin has shown over a number of years. It also has groundwater level contour maps showing groundwater levels over area, a distribution of where groundwater pumping occurs both by municipal agencies like the district, as well as estimated non-municipal pumping. And then the groundwater model is updated to estimate change of groundwater and storage, both by aquifer and mapped by aquifer, as well as showing change of groundwater and storage in time. And you can see in the example figure in the bottom right corner that the groundwater pumping has declined over time, but stabilized and ticked up with those blue shaded bars showing the pumping over time, even as recharge has apparently declined over time as well. So overall stable, but in the last couple of years, groundwater and storage has declined. It also reports on water supply used, both surface water and total water use, in addition to groundwater use. Next slide, please. So the annual report is within the context of adaptive management that both Sigma looks for and the Mid-County Groundwater Agency has adopted. And so it's just reporting on the information to help the agency and the member agencies like the district adapt. And it does lead to kind of a more comprehensive look at the groundwater sustainability plan every 5 years, with the first update due in January of 2025, where there's a more comprehensive look at what should be changed in the planning for sustainability for the basin. Next slide, please. And how is sustainability defined? We've gone over this several times, but it's good to review that sustainability is defined based off of 6 sustainability indicators in Sigma and criteria associated with each of those relevant indicators. And one of the 6 for Santa Cruz Mid-County Basin determined in the GSP not to be relevant. That's land subsidence. But the other 5 are relevant and have a corresponding sustainable management criteria. The data that are used to evaluate sustainable criteria include groundwater levels, volume of groundwater extraction, and concentrations of constituents in groundwater. Groundwater levels are used in addition to the lowering of groundwater levels for groundwater supply indicator, also as a proxy for seawater intrusion and surface water depletion. And those are where we're seeing the most undesirable results currently as of last water year. Reduction of storage is actually evaluated based off of pumping in the basin, or net pumping if you account for injection or recharge, managed recharge into the basin. And seawater intrusion is evaluated based off of salt concentrations and then the greater water quality based off of concentrations of constituents of concern. So there are criteria in the GSP that need to be met to show that the basin is sustainable. Next slide, please. And as far as how the criteria are used and what are the different kinds of criteria there are, to review, there are different parts of criteria. They include minimum threshold, which I hope is the next click. Click through. Yes, minimum threshold is the first criteria that comes up. So minimum threshold is really the one criteria that is the most important as far as determining sustainability, because you don't want to have minimum threshold exceedances. And if you have a certain number of exceedances as defined in GSP, it's considered undesirable results, which represent significant and unreasonable conditions for the basin, which hopefully is the next click through this presentation. So if you have those exceedants, you have enough of them, it's not necessarily just one. It's considered significant unreasonable conditions and therefore unsustainable conditions. And so that's really what Sigma wants basins to avoid, and what the GSP is set up to try to avoid these conditions. To help you try to avoid these conditions, the GSP also includes a measurable objective, which is more of an aspirational goal that helps provide operational flexibility, so you don't have significant unreasonable conditions or can stay above that. And so the measurable objective for groundwater levels would be higher than the minimum thresholds, for something like groundwater quality would be lower. And next click should show an example of that. And then finally, which you want to achieve you have 20 years from the GSP to achieve sustainability. That's to not have undesirable results, meet your minimum thresholds by 2040. You want to maintain sustainability for the next 30 years. To get there by 2040, there are these interim milestones, which should be the last click, every 5 years. Next click, every 5 years to get there and meet your measurable objective by 2040, so that you can maintain sustainability over the next 30 years. So that's just a review of what the criteria are, and focus specifically as we go to the next slide about with seawater intrusion, because seawater, well, first before we get to that, we have the summary of climate and groundwater levels. As Alyssa mentioned, it was a dry year, and about 53% of the long-term average precipitation and groundwater levels did decline in 2021, and related mostly to an increase in groundwater extraction. A lot of that groundwater extraction occurred during a critically dry year, which is when the city of Santa Cruz does have in its plan to increase its pumping during critically dry years, and that is what happened in 2021. So Soquel Creek Water District also had a slight increase in its pumping over the previous year and over most of the last 7 years. Next slide, please. I just want to mention that, see in a lot of these charts, the colors behind the graphs are representative of the water year classification, which is based off of surface water flow in San Lorenzo River, because that is a supply for users in the basin and does affect pumping in the basin. And the browner colors are the drier colors, and the blue colors are the wetter years. So looking at seawater intrusion, we do have groundwater elevations to represent risk of seawater intrusion. Want to have groundwater levels high enough to be above the groundwater elevation proxies to lower the risk of seawater intrusion and prevent seawater intrusion over the long term. It's evaluated based off of a 5-year moving average, because long-term seawater intrusion should be prevented by long-term high groundwater levels that we want to achieve. Over a number of years, there was recovery of groundwater levels increases towards these criteria. Most of them, the 5-year averages didn't get there, but even recent groundwater levels have dropped a little bit, and the 5-year averages have stalled out as far as getting closer to the criteria at a number of wells. Seawater intrusion, let's go to the next slide. Seawater intrusion is also evaluated as required by Sigma based off of chloride concentrations and an isocontour or a line inland of which the GSP states that it would be significant unreasonable for concentrations to be above the drinking water standard of 250 milligrams per liter. So that's what wanted to be presented. And it's also defined at a few wells. And at 2 wells in the seascape area in the last couple of years, there have been concentrations above the orange line for the minimum threshold, representing undesirable results for seawater intrusions with an apparent advancement of seawater intrusion beyond where, which would be significant unreasonable conditions. Now in this area, there is in the GSP, even though Sigma only requires eliminating these undesirable results by 2040, the GSP does set up trying to address things as quickly as possible and talks about reducing municipal pumping in the area where these undesirable results occur. In this area, however, the closest municipal well is the district's seascape well, which has already been reduced to below 50 acre-feet per year. And because of that, the annual report recommends that the MGA evaluate local non-municipal pumping to better understand why concentrations have been increasing in this area. So the next slide are the additional slides that we've added more to guide the water shortage stage evaluation. And in the gray table, you can see how different things that are evaluated for the GSP are looked at for different shortage stages. And for undesirable results for seawater intrusion, basically the number of wells or representative monitoring points guide what shortage stage should be. So if there's any undesirable result for seawater intrusion, which is the basis for the groundwater emergency currently in place by the district, then is shortage stage 3 consistent with what has been in place for a number of years now. And as mentioned, there are 5 undesirable results in Soquel in the district's area with undesirable results for groundwater levels. The level's not high enough to prevent seawater intrusion over the long term, and the 1 location with undesirable results based on fluoride concentrations. And with this number of undesirable results at this number of locations, it continues to indicate a stage 3 based off of the contingency plan that you passed last year. So it would require 10 to indicate even more severe stage 4. It's at 6, which is similar to where it was at last year. Another, to go to the next slide, another evaluation is based off of early management action triggers, which is more on short-term conditions. And there were a few wells which did trigger early management action. With groundwater levels, there were 2 wells with monthly averages that fell below the trigger of 2 feet last summer and early fall. The GSP does describe adjusting pumping to try to prevent that from happening in the following year. We think this is going to happen kind of in the normal course of operation this year, because last year there were a couple of wells offline, which required shifting more pumping to into these aquifer units where these wells are located. And with these wells in different units, farther to these online, be able to spread out pumping more, and shouldn't happen again. But this is something that should be kind of tracked closely. And if it looks like it might happen again, respond quicker than waiting for the next annual report. There are also early management action triggers where we have undesirable results in the seascape area. As mentioned before, the recommendation is to evaluate non-municipal pumping nearby. But with just the 4 locations of early management action triggers, that doesn't override what the undesirable results, which is really the long-term concern and the continuing indication of stage 3 emergency shortage. Next slide, please. So kind of getting back to the annual report overall, the main takeaways, which are summarized by the storage indicator, which is looked at by net pumping. And this is really the amount of pumping, net pumping, subtract the managed recharge that is needed, that is estimated, I should say, to meet sustainability, specifically for preventing seawater intrusion over the long term. And as is continuing to be the case, 2 of the 3 aquifer groups for which there are these criteria, the pumping continues to be higher than what is needed to prevent seawater intrusion over a long term based off of a 5-year average. And as a result, the continued need for either reducing pumping or adding recharge, such as through the planned projects of Pure Water Soquel and the City of Santa Cruz Aquifer Storage and Recovery Project. Next slide, please. And so that is what is being implemented in the GSP. You're fully aware about the progress of Pure Water Soquel, and proud to be part of that effort as well. And then City of Santa Cruz ASR is also moving along. They completed a pilot program in 2021. They're currently doing some demonstration testing with kind of both areas where they would do ASR in, or both aquifer units they would do ASR in, with phased implementation starting as soon as next year. The pilot project agreement for water transfers was renewed after a year off and extended for 5 years. So, all the projects that would help achieve sustainability are moving forward and will be demonstrated in the annual report to BWR. Another part of implementation is to fill data gaps and understand the basin better and understand sustainability better. That includes adding new monitoring wells in areas where aquifer units are not monitored, as well as a number of new features to monitor the interaction between surface water and groundwater. Next slide, please. And the last information we provided to the MGA, which I'll repeat for you, is what we're doing with the groundwater model. As mentioned before, for the annual reports, we do update the groundwater model with the previous water years climate data. Sometimes we have to revise prior information based off of revisions, but climate data and groundwater extraction are updated every year, and they provide, the results are used to estimate groundwater and storage over time and over space. But we are collecting new data that will help improve the groundwater model and can be incorporated with recalibration. But the schedule for doing that is when we start the process for doing the update to the GSP. So a lot of new data sources, including from the monitoring network expansion mentioned in the last slide, but also all the work that is being done for the projects, Pure Water Soquel and ASR. So be glad to answer any questions at this point.
Wow, let's see. I really appreciate that. That was very clear and organized. Thanks.
Yeah.
So are there any public comment? Any hands raised?
I do have a little bit more on this item. If you want to ask Cameron any questions now? I
just want to make sure no public comment at this point, but I don't see anything, so that is fine. So yeah, proceed.
Okay, yeah, I just have a little bit more, just to kind of wrap it all up as far as our curtailment stage goes. And thank you, Cameron, for that. And as he showed in his slides, the current groundwater conditions also place us in a stage 3 water shortage, just as the rainfall trigger condition did, per our current plan. So at this time, staff is suggesting to stay in a stage 3 for the remainder of 2022 and early 2023. And a stage 3 calls for a curtailment of 25% over a baseline demand of around 3,900 acre feet per year. So that results in a production target of around 2,900 acre feet. And that would result in a residential use target of 50 gallons per person per day. And because we have been in a stage 3 for several years, it will be essentially business as usual for our conservation. We will continue our robust leak detection and water waste enforcement, as well as our normal conservation rebates, house calls, and all the outreach that we do. But would specifically outreach a stage 3 to our customers through quick steps and on the website. And I just want to go over the motions real quick. At this time, our current resolution, which is 1908, calls for a stage 3 without emergency rates implemented. And so the option to stay in the stage 3 with no emergency rates is the first motion here. However, if the board would like to choose a different water shortage stage or would like to implement emergency rates, we will need to come back with a new resolution, and we would bring that back for the board's adoption at a future board meeting. And so those options are included in the second and third motions. And thank you. I would be happy to answer any questions you have on that material. And then if you have any questions for Cameron as well.
Great. Thank you, Alyssa. All right, so Rochelle, any questions for either of them or comments?
No, it was very thorough.
Okay, Bruce?
Just a couple of quick questions. So Alyssa, my ears perked up with the 3,900 acre feet baseline. Could you remind me again about how that came to be and how it was chosen?
Yeah, so when we did the demand projections as part of our last urban water management plan, around 3,900 acre feet was identified as the highest expected year in the future. And so that's what was chosen as the baseline for calculating these curtailments.
Okay. So, thank you. And then, what's that?
No, just wondering if you had anything else, Bruce.
I had a question for Cameron. First, Cameron, nice presentation. Very well laid out and clear. I was just kind of thinking about the rain figures and how what's being, if I recall correctly, what's being used now is different than what was used at one point. And but I don't recall the details of it all. But do you have any comments on how comparable the old data and the present, and then with, if I'm correct about a different rain gauge being used, is to the current data?
Yeah, you are correct that we do have to use different sources of data. A lot of the evaluation and the original model calibration was based off of rain at the Santa Cruz co-op station, and all the rain numbers and averages are basically based off of that. But in recent years, there have been a number of times when there have been missing dates of data from that station, and so many that the totals are not reliable. Then when that happens, and we've had to do this in the past as well, we generally use data from the De La Vallaga CIMIS station and use a relationship between CIMIS and the co-op station to make it equivalent over time. So with respect to the rainfall numbers that Alyssa presented, that has been done, and that's typically done for the model updates as well. It's a little trickier with the model updates because we need to provide daily data there. And so that's something that we'll actually be reevaluating next year to make sure that we have a consistent process going forward. But for everything with Alyssa numbers, which are basically yearly numbers and half-year numbers, the conversion has been made, and it's consistent with what we've been done in the past as best we can based off of what the data are available.
Sounds like a reasonable approach. That's all I have.
Carla?
Oh, thank you. Well, I thought both of Alyssa's and Cameron's presentations were very good. Thank you. I particularly was concerned about this. And I just had a quick question. I liked how you laid out all of the data that justify, and it certainly justified, and I'm in agreement with the stage 3 declaration. But I just came across some other literature, and I was wondering about our hydrologic models, that we've been using to predict this stuff, and whether it needs to be tweaked to adjust for the increased rate of climate change that we are experiencing now. Like we are now, it's a declared worst drought in 1,200 years. It's a really serious drought. It's not like it was in 2010, and that when that data set was used to, model our groundwater. And I was wondering if there's any, do you know of any, whether they're undertaking any consideration of tweaking it to adjust for sporadic rain and then pulsed with severe drought during a rainy season, and whether that would affect recharge?
We don't have current efforts to update kind of the climate modeling used to evaluate projected conditions. Specifically, most importantly for the district, what we can project with the implementation of Pure Water Soquel, and is Pure Water Soquel going to achieve what the goals are? Those efforts are we have not undertaken those efforts. The plan is to really evaluate that as the effort for doing that 5-year update is undertaken, which I haven't seen a specific schedule, but I expect that would be later in 2020, the second half of 2023. So one full fiscal year away. And I think that's definitely something to be considered. One thing that I think we can do is just see how the catalog climate scenario that we have been using, how that compares to what has happened. One thing with the catalog climate I was always concerned about was that it's based off of historical conditions, and so that it wouldn't reflect the expected increase in temperatures. But it might actually do okay as far as dry years, because we do select the warmer times that tend to be drier. So it might actually be decent on as far as what dry years are affected. But haven't done that, haven't done that evaluation yet. And so that's something that we could start with for sure, and just say, how does this hold up so far? The one thing with Pure Water Soquel is that for most locations that there is quite an improvement in groundwater levels, that there is kind of margin for error around something like climate. So I think should be pretty confident in that. There are a couple of locations where maybe it's more marginal, and that's where it would be affected, more likely to be affected, that kind of supplementary efforts might be needed.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, thanks. Because I was just concerned about that, because my memory of the 80s, I read the catalog years, there have been droughts, of course, but my memory of it is that it was associated with severe cold, and actually the warm was during a rainy period. They were always warmer, and then it would freeze, and Soquel Creek froze over for a month one year. That was probably 1990, I guess, 91. I can't remember exactly which year it was, but it was associated with a severe drought then too. And so I just started getting a little worried about that we might not be able to plan effectively if we were relying on a model that had it adjusted to the dramatic change that we've been experiencing for the last 8 years or so. So anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely needs to be looked at. It's just sort of is the current timing of relooking at it good enough, or is that something that should be looked at sooner with Pure Water Soquel coming online in that certain amount of time? I mean, I don't think it would change how you proceed with Pure Water Soquel. So it's definitely something that should be looked at, and it's what Sigma would want you to look at.
Okay, thank you very much. And Alyssa, I just had a question for you, like on the one of our outreach, like on the AMI outreach, and whether we needed to make more of an effort on that to increase the water smart groups, water smart users, so that in that to comply with our stage 3 declaration, because since we're not going to charge more money, do we need to do any more outreach to enhance that water saving for this year? Well, this year in particular, because this is the year before we hopefully will be implementing Pure Water Soquel.
Yeah, we're always looking at new ways to encourage people to engage with Water Smart and to sign up for faster leak detection and to solve their leaks sooner. And, that is an ongoing effort, and whether we certainly can use Water Smart to enhance outreach to some groups during a curtailment. We didn't have specific plans to do that, but certainly as we go along, if we see groups of customers not responding, it is something that we are able to target through WaterSmart easier than we could before.
Okay, I know, because this sort of there's a lot on the water district's plate right now. I agree. That's my feeling about it, without even visiting the main office anymore for the last 2 years. But I know that there's a lot going on, but I just thought, well, we aren't imposing any more fees, so how do we get people's attention about how bad this drought is?
Yeah, and we luckily are still seeing really good conservation, especially from single family customers. There hasn't been a huge rebound since we had the last drought, and there's always places to improve, so that's what we'll be looking at, but most of our customers have done a good job of continuing this conservation all through our stage 3s that we've had since 2014.
So
I have a couple things.
okay, go on.
Are you done, Carla?
I'm
Sorry.
finished. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. My main thing, actually, I thought it was really clear to me, but I was wondering if it'd be really important to, since we're asking customers to still conserve and we're being in a stage 3, I wonder if there's a way to clearly explain how, the basics of this annual report, that the protective groundwater levels have actually gotten worse, and that the evidence of seawater intrusion, that we're monitoring it really closely so that we can prevent it, and that we're working on a solution, but that this is why we have to still be in a stage 3. So it's more of a public outreach request rather than, because I think it was really clearly presented, and I'm just wondering, and if there's a good visual and understandable by people that aren't spending as much time as we spend with it, to still get the idea.
Well, I was thinking along those lines too. I agree with you, Tom, too.
Bruce, do you have your hand up for a new comment, sir?
Yes, but I like your idea, Tom and Carla, using this annual report as a teaching tool. But I just wanted to comment on attachment 2 on page, I think it's 209, if I'm right. There's a graph that, figure 1, estimated annual deep recharge for calibrated PRMS model versus precipitation at the Santa Cruz Cooperative Station. And it's just very clear, that figure to me. I don't know if you're showing it now. You are. Where, you know, that first 30 inches of rainfall, we don't get a lot of recharge. We get, you know, a decent amount. But then once that next 10 inches, it's five times more recharge, and the next 10 after that is almost 10 times, or the next 10 to 20 is almost 10 times more recharge. So it just, I'm glad that was included with this report, just because it really drives home the point that when our rainfall is low, the recharge is very low.
Great, thanks, Bruce.
Okay.
We've had an opportunity for public comment. We've had an opportunity for comment and questions. Possible board action is to basically make a motion to continue the stage 3 water shortage emergency, and with no emergency rates, or to do something different.
I'll make a motion to approve number 1, continue the stage 3 water shortage. You know, my feeling is that's our new baseline, at least until pure water Soquel goes in, goes online. So
I'll second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Director Daniels is absent. Vice President Christensen.
Yes.
Director Jaffe.
Yes.
Director Lather.
Yes.
And President LaHue.
Yes.
Thank you.
Great, and thank you, Cameron. If you want to stay for the next things, feel free, but don't feel like you have to. It was really clear. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, really good job.
Thank you.
Thanks, Cameron.
All righty, so let's see, who is presenting? Is Christine presenting it? Greg, item 7.4, the Consumer Confidence Water Quality Report.
The Water Quality Program Coordinator will present this item.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Director LaHue. I really appreciate being able to work where I live. So when I saw the cover picture that I think Becca chose for the
Is that tough for people to hear somehow?
A little bit.
It's a little muffled somehow.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if the microphone can be closer to you somehow or something.
I'm using my wife's computer. I don't even know where the microphone is. I'll just try to be a little bit louder. How does that sound?
That's tough.
Is it still? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'll just be as loud as I can.
Okay.
I'll turn it up.
Saying that I really appreciate being able to work where I live. So seeing the picture that Becca chose for the CCR this year made me smile, because I can almost make out my house on the picture there. The content of the report itself is pretty much the same as last year. A lot of the text is going to be mandated, so it's system information on the sources and vulnerability, definitions for the confusing acronyms, things like that. Most of my effort goes into the table on page 6. So this is where results for the most recent sampling will show, and it will show anything that is above a detected level. What it won't show, I think I made this point last year, are any of the bacteriological results, because those are pretty much always absent, which is what we want. But listening to Ron present earlier and seeing how our values tied together, infrastructure and water quality. I appreciated that because you know, you look at a table like this and you think it's all about just water sampling is water quality, but really most of the work goes into safeguarding the hygiene of the system. So this week we were at San Andreas well, and for example, the brand new electrician is out there power washing pipe before we put it back in. And there's additional disinfection and bacteriological sampling that happens before we can bring that well back online. So infrastructure and water quality go hand in hand, and the primary effort is still in keeping the system bacteriologically safe. I'll point out a couple of things just off the table to draw your attention to. Iron and manganese there in the secondary aesthetic standard. So that's a secondary MCL. It's not a health concern, but we did have a couple of individual results that were fairly high for us for both iron and manganese. Also related to infrastructure, we had a well Altivo that has a very low pumping goal, so rarely used. And as it gets rarely used, more corrosion, more iron and manganese buildup. So when we sampled, we're sampling really just for water quality results, really only to maintain that well's active status. And the iron and manganese started ticking up. So we ended up deciding by the end of the year to put that one on standby. And most of those quarterly samples that were higher, we were pumping that water to waste anyways. So that is not really representative of the water that's going out to the district, but you'll see that the average amount for iron and manganese is still non-detected. Another thing I wanted to point out is that pretty much everything is tested in 2021, except for, if you scroll down a little bit, please, thank you. The unregulated constituent monitoring, or the UCMR, they call that. We just got put on the schedule for the next round, UCMR 5, which will come out in 2025, and that will cover the much talked about PFAS contaminants, the perfluoroalkyl substances. So there'll be 29 of those, and lithium. There'll be something you'll see on here in a couple of years. And then lead and copper, a little bit farther down, that was last done in 2019, and that's due again this summer. So that's pretty much what I had on CCR. Happy to answer any questions you have. Thank you.
Okay. Let's see. So any public comment on this item? Looking for hands. Don't see any. Okay, then I will see if board members have comments or questions. Rochelle?
I was offline for a second there, so you're asking me if I have any questions?
Yep.
No, I do not have any questions.
Bruce?
That is a very clear report. Thank you, Greg. Just one question on the table on page 6. It has typical sources of constituents, and under chromium, it has discharge from steel and pulp mills and chrome plating, and then at the end, erosion of natural deposits. Is that text required?
Yes, the sources of the contaminants or constituents, that verbiage is from the state.
Okay, because
yeah,
I don't think we've got any pulp mills or steel mills, or
no.
I don't know about chrome plating, but yeah. Okay, just as I suspected as much, but I just wanted to know.
Good question, Bruce. Carla?
I seem to remember from last year that we had some issue with the water transfers that we were doing with Santa Cruz, and it led to an elevated, we had a problem with trihalomethanes, or the haloacetic acids. And I was just wondering if, I noticed that they're down. Is that the reason we didn't have do the water transfers with the city of Santa Cruz this past year?
not the reason we didn't, but I think it's the reason why they're down most likely.
Okay, that was my main question. Very, I enjoy seeing this report every year. Thank you.
Yeah, it's great. Thank you, Greg. I'm pretty sure we need to make a motion to, well, I guess we don't need to make a motion. It just says we can direct staff to make any changes or take no action, and it'll move on without our help. So it looks like we didn't come up with anything. So good job, Greg.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we can move along. Oh, this is going to be a tough one. Okay. Well, Ronnie, you're going to start this one off.
It's always an honor and a pleasure to present these types of resolutions to the board for approval. This one is especially bittersweet. We definitely will miss Christine. As you know, her last day with us will be the end of the month on April 29th after 15 years of service to the district. And presenting this evening tonight a resolution, and would love for the board with Christine being here tonight for you guys to read that to her. That'd be wonderful.
All right. Well, Christine, you have been wonderful, and I know all the people that work for you appreciate you and will miss you, and we will as well. So I'm gonna have the pleasure of reading this. I thought it was actually really well done. So I took a little practice run at it a couple times because it was really, really neat. So, whereas Christine was hired by the district in September 2007 as the water quality technician or stores keeper, and then in 2011 reclassified to the water quality program coordinator. Shortly thereafter, in 2013, Christine was selected to lead the department when she was promoted to the operations and maintenance manager. Whereas Christine is leaving the Soquel Creek Water District with almost 15 years of water quality, supply, infrastructure, facilities, production, regulatory, and programs knowledge, wow, and has contributed countless hours and energy to ensure our customers and community are provided safe, high quality, reliable, and sustainable drinking water. Thank you. And whereas Christine takes the responsibility of a water professional to the highest degree and maintains a grade 5 distribution and grade 3 treatment operator certifications. Whereas Christine was active in the startup of several new district facilities, including the Polo Grounds and O'Neill Ranch wells and water treatment plants and the Aptos Junior High replacement well. And she played a key role in the district's cooperative water transfer project with the city of Santa Cruz. And whereas Christine's dedication to a safe drinking water system will have long-term and lasting effects, my favorite, to Soquel Creek Water District, reflected in her exemplary work as coordinator and the departmental manager of the district's water quality program. She led the way on compliance efforts related to hexavalent chromium and 1,2,3-trichloropropane, among others. And whereas Christine played a significant role in ensuring staff safety as the district safety committee chair, upgrading and implementing the district's emergency action plan and health and safety program, as well as being a key member of the district's emergency response plan update team. And whereas Christine has a huge heart for all animals and critters, especially those within her family menagerie, dogs, kitties, ducks, fish, etc., we all wish we could come back in another life as one of Christine's pets. And whereas Christine is a respected colleague with impeccable attention to detail, fantastic recall of events and policies, encyclopedic knowledge of all things water, top-level research and writing skills, and a never-ending curiosity for current events and news. She's an inspiration to us all to be better at what we do. And, little side note, whereas Christine's passion for her San Francisco Giants and 49ers is legendary, her never-ending grin during winning streaks and seasons, and even the post-loss, I don't want to talk about it, day after blues, will be missed by all. And whereas Christine has been an exemplary manager, coworker, and friend, Her positive impact on the district will be felt for many years. And now, therefore, be it resolved by the Board of Directors of Soquel Creek Water District that Christine Mead is hereby recognized for her steadfast leadership for 15 years and to her innumerable contributions to the district. And be it further resolved that we all join in extending our sincere appreciation for her loyalty, professionalism, and years of service, and wish her a very long, rewarding, and well-deserved retirement. So, Christine, thanks so much.
Thank you very much. That was really nice. And I'm sad and happy, and I mean, it's been a really great place to work, and the people are the best, and you know, I kind of feel like I'm leaving the department at a really good time, because it took a while to sort of recover from a couple of key retirements, and we're finally at that spot. And so I think it's a great time for me to take an exit strategy, and we're all really excited about my replacement, and I'm excited about my new chapter in life. So thank you all very much.
Well, I hope that you keep that curiosity going and keep rooting for the Giants. So would anyone like to make a motion?
I'll move.
I'll second.
All right.
But fix the hymn.
Yes.
The hymn.
Yes, fix that. But other than that one typo, it's all good. Okay, so roll call, please.
Director Daniels is absent. Vice President Christensen.
Yes, and thank you very much, Christine. That was great. I look forward to meeting up with you at New Brighton Beach again.
Yes, every Christmas.
Yes, I'll keep it in mind for sure and look for you.
Okay.
Director Jaffe.
Definitely yes, and thanks for all that you've done for the district, Christine. And if we were to meet up, I think it'd be at a Giants game.
Hi.
Yeah.
Yes.
Director Lather.
Says my internet connection is unstable. I hope you guys can hear me. Yes, Christine, it's been a joy to work with you. I'm sure you'll be around, or I'll see you at Nob Hill and wonder where do I remember her from? Oh yeah, it's Christine. We all look different in the real world, you know.
Yep.
But thank you, and yes, that's a yes.
And President Hugh.
And I want to, and yes, I definitely approve of this resolution as much as I hate to see her go. And I just wanted to say one more thing, that, you know, you lead by example. And so your dedication passes down the ranks. People notice. So thank you.
Thank you.
Well, folks, that's a nice way to end the meeting, I think.
Definitely.
I think
Thank you, Christine.
adjournment is next on the agenda. So we will see. Let's see, we have a 5 p.m. meeting on May 3rd now, which is primarily a budget workshop. So that is the plan. Okay. We will see you all then, and have fun, Christine.
Thank you.
Meeting adjourned.
Bye.